love my job. I know for a lot of teachers, a lot of people that get into education, this is not something that they often encounter. I can't speak for their own experiences. I can only tell you my own, and it's that I love it. I love working here. I love coming here every day. So I'm part of the theology faculty here, the newest member of the theology faculty. So I work alongside Kathleen Bueller. I teach courses related to Christology, so understanding who Jesus is, soteriology, which is the mission of Jesus for our salvation, introduction to Catholicism class for freshmen who may not be super familiar with the Catholic faith, so coming to a Catholic school and they're like, okay, what is it that we're getting into here? And it's like, okay, well, let me show you that we're not as scary as people might have made us out to believe. And I also teach the world religions class here. My title as subdeacon is a reference to the fact that I've been ordained to the minor order of subdeacon, a sign of myself being someone who is in preparation to be ordained a deacon and a priest eventually. I went to Catholic High School, and because I had gone to public school my entire life, I had never before had theology courses, and when I started taking theology courses, I absolutely loved it, and I found that I had a great knack for it. And I had a wonderful teacher, the very revered Father Emmanuel Gary Samoya, who became like a mentor to me, himself a Romanian Eastern Catholic priest. And from there, the rest was history. I'm like, this is what I want to do. And I actually wound up rediscovering my own Eastern Catholic background that had long since forgotten in my family. And so years later, here I am, having finished seminary, and now I'm doing the same kind of work that my mentor was doing, which is kind of serendipitous, really. I think if I had to pick a spot where it stemmed from was I had another teacher. He had a philosophy that came to one's faith, and it was a faith that cannot stand up to questioning is not a faith worth having. That's something I really took to heart. I think one of the things that the students really like that I do is I'm not afraid to implement some of those deeper or maybe even difficult questions. I was in high school, I remember, like, why do people die? You know, what is, like, if God is good, why is there evil in the world? Just letting them ask the questions that they want to ask, or maybe even asking the questions that they're afraid to ask. We can engage those in an open way, and in a way that's not condescending. And I think that gets into the second aspect of my philosophy, so which is not just faith, but also how we approach students, which is that they're a lot smarter than we often give them credit for. I would say my first start in teaching was I taught 5th grade catechism when I was in high school, and I remember I had 5th graders, even 5th graders, that they were asking like these really deep introspective questions, and I'm like, well, if they're doing this at 5th grade, like there's no reason this isn't happening in the high school level. And so just being willing to approach students in a way that says, I recognize how intelligent you are, and I'm going to give you challenges that maybe your intellect is not at this moment ready for, but by struggling with them, by wrestling with them, you're going to grow. It really gives them a sense that they're not children anymore, but they're maturing into adults. I think I'm most in my element when I'm teaching one of the theology courses. My morality courses in particular, I'm really enjoying those. Christology, I'm really enjoying those. The one that gives me the most reprieve and is very interesting in of itself is the world religions course, which I approach from a religious studies perspective. I think it's a nice way of creating like a little taste of some of the stuff that they will first of all encounter should they go on to a higher education, and they can just have a lot of fun with learning about different cultures, different religious beliefs, the history behind that. I think it's at least good to give people a sense of religious literacy, which is to say, to know that, like, maybe I don't know everything about my own faith, but I also don't know everything about everyone else. But if I can know a little bit about everybody, you know, maybe that can give me a deeper appreciation for what it is I believe. And really to ask that question, what is it that I believe? Now, obviously, I'm biased about what the true faith is, but that's a question I think is ultimately an individual on their own they have to answer. And I think it's also important to be honest with when we don't know something. There's a certain wisdom in being able to admit, I don't know everything. This is the foundation of all epistemology, if you believe Socrates. You know, like, I can only know that I know nothing. Right? And that's where you begin. Usually on Fridays, I do a an open discussion day. They can pick a topic relating to theology, any topic, and they can ask about it. If we're going to grow and we're actually going to make any progress here, like, we need to actually engage these arguments for what they are, not what we often make them to be. And so that turned into quite an interesting and enlightening discussion as to why do some people fall on this side of the aisle and why do others fall on this. And this situation is super uncomfortable. People do have reasons for why they believe what they believe. And just looking at what the church says and then saying that in a way that high schoolers understand. And I tell them that you are allowed to walk out of this classroom not believing what it is I believe, because true faith, and the church teaches us, true faith cannot be compelled. It cannot be compelled. And reminding them every day that they have that freedom to assess and make a decision on their own, and then it's their responsibility to make it on their own, I think is very important. I get to teach what I love to teach. I get to teach according to the true faith, and can also teach some other faiths too. They're still pretty interesting. I love my job. I come home every day and my wife asks, how was work? And I say, it was wonderful, I love my job.